and then we will get started on this, and hopefully you will learn some things about what I've been doing, and maybe you might even be doing some more amazing things, since this is kind of a little bit older since I just did this one. All right, so oops, wrong one. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see this from the beginning. Hopefully. I will try to have all these things where I can see the chat and I also can let people in, but this is not perfected at all. So I'm going to try to do the best I can. All right. So this is basically a course that I taught about a year ago, and it's been a really interesting experience because it's one of a new kind. And I did a lot of, okay, there, sorry, I'm having some issues. I'm still letting people in, so I really do apologize. I'm just trying to do this all manually. So what I'm going to talk about basically is that this course was at Boise State University. We deal with students that are of all different ages, all different backgrounds. This this course was really built for rural students. And with when I say rural students, we have Boise, which is a metropolitan location, but we try to make sure we involve students that are really small little towns in the community. And when I say small little towns, it's the ones that we're actually directing our attention to, and it's probably about, I would say, proximity of like an hour away, really, really small communities. And so I incorporate this fully online course specifically for those students. And I wanted to make sure that these students had access to AI, had access to doing community work, had access to what other students would be doing on campus. And so when I go and discuss these AI tools, my main focus is basically it's basically ChatGPT and Gemini, anything that's free. That was the whole point, was having something that was free. So the course is fully online, like I had mentioned. I don't meet any of the students. I do have meetings with them via Zoom. And this is part of a certificate program. We have a community impact program. My course is the last one. It's kind of like a capstone. And so all the students in the course must do an actual project and complete it by the end of the course. And they're supposed to do the project within their community if they want to. The point is that they actually bring in AI and their skill set to that community, because a lot of them don't want to leave the particular community that they're in. So I wanted them to do projects that would impact their community, directly affect them. They felt like they had some buy-in. It was pretty significant that they were involved in that aspect. Some of them did choose some things that maybe weren't so much as in their area, but some of them actually wanted to do something where they lived in Boise, but they wanted to serve the community where they came from. So they use AI pretty much throughout the semester, and in the very end, their full project is something that they show me evidence of. They've assessed it, they shared it with the community partner, etc. So that's overall what this course is about. So hopefully that you can get the gist of it. I'm trying to um, close something. All right. So, okay, there. Like I just said, it's a community-based learning project, fully online. 2025, the spring I offered it at Boise State University, the School of the Blue, and it still continues on. The only difference now is that instead of it being 15 weeks, I need to shift it to 7 weeks because that's what the students wanted. Most of my courses are 7 weeks long. So this one was a little different, so they wanted me to do that as well and kind of change it so it works within their schedule. It's a little tighter, a little bit harder, but it's still working so far. So the course goals was to integrate community engagement and academics within this course. Lots of reflective learning that's occurring also in this course because it's service learning based, and then having some meaningful student outcomes. What I mean by student outcomes is, yes, I want them to learn about assessing their community. I want them to learn about doing reports. I also want them to learn how they can make an impact and maybe cause something of a ripple effect, etc. So that was some of the outcomes I wanted. More than anything, I wanted to show them that they were really capable of making a difference within their small communities. And my overall goal is that they'll continue. We don't know if students will do that, but that is generally an intended goal, is that they'll feel like they're really making a difference and they'll want to continue with what they started as their project. So why does this matter? So online CBL is already a challenge in itself. A lot of people struggle with doing service learning online because um, service learning is supposed to be known to be something that's more in person. It doesn't have to be, but it's kind of a natural thing that people kind of experience, especially at Boise State University. They do expect to do a project with a community partner, and they actually go out, meet with a community partner, do the project, etc. Whereas my students, though they're rural, I do have other students that are in the military, they're international, they're living in different states. So I need to bring the community project to them. So that can be a bit of a struggle, and I don't have as much control if I were having a community partner actually located in Boise, Idaho. Also, belonging, identity, growth are really hard to measure online. As we know, I notice a lot of people teach online. There is a challenge of connecting with your students and students to connect with each other. And I don't think this is an unusual problem. I think we all kind of struggle with it. And I think that hopefully there'll be better ways of doing that other than through Zoom or through some other type of software platform that we might be using in the future. I'm not sure. And then AI may help learning visible. So like I mentioned, I wanted to use AI because I thought it would benefit their learning. I also thought that it would help where they lived in their communities because I knew they had access to it. There's some resources that may be harder to get while they're out there. So that was one of the reasons why I added AI to the course. And a lot of them had not experienced AI before. I mean, this was about a year ago. So AI was really, really new. And there was a lot of fear going on with AI overall. Boise State, everywhere, students were scared to use it. They explained to me that I was actually having them use it, show me the prompts, etc. And they were telling me that in other courses that they weren't allowed to. So they weren't sure. I guess they didn't know what the boundaries were. They didn't know what they could and could not do. And so that's been a struggle. And as the world has shifted, it's still a struggle as I teach AI in different coursework. And I've noticed that, yes, they're getting a lot more comfortable, but at the same time, there are some that really still feel uncomfortable because they don't want to be, I guess, punished for using AI in the wrong way. And sometimes they don't know what that looks like. So I try to define and provide examples. And if I feel like they're going a little bit beyond that, then I will have a small conversation and say, hey, I know you're working with AI. You can't represent your critical thinking or your original thought. So you need to revise this so I can hear your voice in it. So I've been trying to do it that instead of just punishing them automatically because I'm not sure whether that was their intended goal or not. So it doesn't replace the final work. They are supposed to submit a professional poster about their project to an exhibit symposium that we have at Boise State. And then they also have to create a report, and that report is shared with me, the I grade, and the report is shared with a community partner. And they have to show me the evidence that they actually reached out to the cleaning partner and they shared it because that's important to me. I don't want them to create a product and then it kind of just dies. I want to see the full circle effect of it. Um, and of course, I don't use AI to do the grade itself. Since this course is more of a scaffolding effect, and I work them through every single section. I go in and I actually, follow the students, what they're doing, etc. We do not have any tests in any of my courses or in our program for that matter. So that is just what AI did not do. So let me go over the technical aspect of this course. So I did a pre and post test to see what the students were thinking about AI, but also thinking about their connections to the community, to their colleagues, to their the all different ways of how they explore the world as a college student, except with the ability of AI. But my students are unique because they are rural. And I do have a small amount of number of them as well. As you can see, I only had 10 in this one. And post test was 6 responses, even though I think everyone but one actually dropped out of the course. But this is what I gathered. I also collected course evaluations that I'll go over to kind of give you a little bit of a snapshot of how it worked. But this 16 survey instrument measured identity, belonging, skills, and satisfaction. And then I added my own AI questions to it. So I wanted to have a general idea of rural students in a community-based course, but I also want to know what the impact was on, on AI too. This was provided at the very beginning of the course and the very end. So I try to get the results in that respect. I feel like I'm talking super fast. Okay, so I'm going to slow down a little bit. Like I said, it was a Likert scale items. It focused on academic self-perception, gratitude, belonging, and study habits. And I did a statistical analysis on it. Again, I want to remind you that it was actually it was a small group of students. And I haven't done the pre and post test on all the other 3 courses that I've taught afterward. But I have done the same course evaluations to kind of see if there's been a shift or change, especially since the course used to be 15 weeks and now is only 7. So what I learned overall is they did have increased gratitude towards supporters in respect of family members, friends, etc., not necessarily the support of the community. That you could see that shifted, at least their interaction with the community changed a little bit. But that this is in reflection to people that kind of help them throughout the process of college. So that's the basic idea. And most of the students, even though this is the last course of a certificate, I would say the average student is probably in their like 20 or so because they started the certificate as a freshman and so there's usually sometimes they come back to it later, sometimes they come it exactly as it's provided from credit to credit. So that's the aspect for supporters. They had greater satisfaction with academic achievements. I'm it I'm hoping it was related to this course. It was more of like a general question regarding that semester, but also about the interaction in the course itself, and then a stronger sense of college community connection. So even though that was shown somewhat in the course. I think that is in relation to them maybe being more interactive with their community. The course was small. They did have discussion assignments, but they didn't actually interact beyond that. So they could see each other's projects. They could understand each other's projects. They would make comments and make suggestions about what the other person could do because it's a different perspective. So those were the positive gains. There were some negative gains, and that is a decline in self-reported study habits and also a lower peer friendliness acceptance, which is kind of ironic compared to what I just said. But the course was small. And to give you a little bit of an idea of where these students are at, before they actually take my course, they are in a cohort together. And they are, like I said, they're based in rural communities. So not me, but a different professor goes to these communities and then has the students change different small rural communities. And that's where they have their courses at. So it's like a weekend thing, it's in person. And so mine is the only course that's online. And so that might be some of the reasons as to why I got that response. um, being in the cohort, always being together, and then not can kind of change. They also had a visit where basically where each other's live. So one would go to Emmett, which is like 45 minutes in one direction, and then the following month they would have to go to the opposite direction. So there was a lot of driving involved, but seeing each other over Friday, a Saturday, and the Sunday on the weekend. So it's a lot of dedication to this certificate program, muchly supported by our president at Boise State. Here is a little bit about the course evaluations that I wanted to talk about because it's directly related to AI. So the first question I asked was, how did AI tools influence your ability to collaborate with or understand the community? And this is what some of them wrote. And it says, I have much better understanding and appreciation of AI. Because of this course, AI tools help me better understand assignments, etc. It helped with my communication. So I'll go into some ideas of some of those assignments that I did on ChatGPT for them. And then it helped give them other ideas and other potential stakeholders. So the other one is, by the way, anyone can stop me if they want. I'm not looking at the chat right now because it covers my too much of my screen, but you can always just take off your mute and that would be fine. Did using AI tools enhance or detract from your community engagement work? It enhanced me as it gave me a better foundation to engage with community. They felt better. Using AI tools enhanced my community engagement, coming up with project ideas and supporting the planning process. AI really helped to see things I didn't think about when it came to my project. And then the other one is I had my own ideas on how I wanted to navigate this project, etc. So a lot of them are referring to part of the course where they brainstorm with their AI, with AI, and possibly an AI community partner. So I'll get into that. I'll actually get into that, I think, in a moment. Oh, before I do. So the interpretation from overall is AI did improve reflection and articulation of experiences. It did help with project management and journaling, and I'll explain how journaling is involved, but there's a lack of peer interaction, and there's a possible over-reliance on AI in study practices. It's a very fine line. They don't have to necessarily, I wouldn't call it study, it's much more experiential learning, even though there's lots of articles and there's lots of readings and videos that they do watch to help them prepare for this project. But I wouldn't consider it heavily, APA peer-reviewed research. So, but that can be shown in different spots, I can say. So I'm going to go over the different types of integrated AI assignments. I think this is like the basis of what I wanted to talk about. I want to share the results, but I think it's really looking at how AI is used in this type of class in this format. And I have after this slide, I do actually have examples of the prompts that I use on the actual assignments themselves. Let me admit somebody. Okay. So the first one is AI reflections. How does that work? They do reflect on themselves and their thoughts, etc., which is actually very true. But there are a few assignments where I added this. The first assignment was the introductions. I don't know if the other universities and colleges do this, but they really encourage us to have an introduction in the first module or the first section of the course. It's almost like a requirement. Well, let me add. All right. So the first assignment is in the first week, and I'm introducing them to ChatGPT. As I said, a lot of them felt uncomfortable with it, didn't know how to use it. And I say ChatGPT, but they are allowed to use other things. They can use Gemini, they can use Copilot, etc. The first one is they write a little bit about themselves in ChatGPT, and then it's supposed to create a picture of them. They don't have to upload their picture, but they actually define what they look like, and then they can have ChatGPT create a poem about them or a story about them or something, and that's how they introduce themselves. And then they talk a little bit about how it really reflected them or not. The pictures of who they are vary greatly. Some have said that it looks just like them, and others say it looks nothing like them. So, of course, that's how it works in the chat and based on their prompt, of course. The other way I've used reflections, AI and reflections, is that when they go into the actual readings in the videos, of course, I want them to reflect on what they've just read. So they collect their thoughts and what they learn from it. They put that information into ChatGPT, and then they ask ChatGPT, please ask me a question about what I've learned. And so I was trying that with students so they could also feel a little more comfortable because the activities that they were going to be doing in ChatGPT or Gemini were going to be a little more deep. And so I was trying to get them used to it. So what they did is they would add all this information in there, and then ChatGPT would give them a question, and then they're supposed to go on. Now, in theory, that sounds fabulous. I thought it was like, oh, this is so cool. Not so much. I have kind of deviated a little bit from that. The first one or two times they did it, great. But I noticed that they were so used to the redundancy of it that they weren't really reflecting that much. And so now I've kind of removed that from my current course because I'm teaching it currently right now this spring. And so it was a great way to start. I probably used it more than I should have in the first semester, thinking it would kind of create some variety and some interest. But the students figured out that AI had a tendency to ask the same questions, and so they were taking shortcuts basically, which I did not anticipate, because I guess in my theory I was like, oh, this is great, but that's not always the case, is it? So that was the AI reflection aspect of it. Like I said, I still use the introduction. That works really, really well. They have great fun with it, and I give them permission, which I think they do appreciate because it's like you can do this, and they know what they can and cannot do. But like I said, the other part about feeding AI about what they learned, it did not work out as well. So I might return to it, but I'm going to have to revise the assignment much more. So there's a lot more conversation that's happening between the two. I have not figured that out yet. The research gathering, they do something like a mini needs assessment for their community. And the reason why they do this is because even though they live in their community, they don't know much about it. They haven't gone out and knocked on the doors of different nonprofits. They haven't looked at different service learning aspects or things they can do or volunteering. It's just they're busy college students. It hasn't been the focus, and so I have them do some research gathering on their community itself, so they can learn a little more about it. It also helps me because they're in such small communities and they come from all these different communities that I couldn't know everything about every community. So I'll give you an example of what that looks like. So they go into AI and they say, "Hi, I'm from Glens Ferry and I want to learn a little more about Glens Ferry." So they talk to it like as a regular person, as we know. And Glen Ferry is like an hour away from us. Super small. I think it has one stoplight, so you can imagine it's probably small. And they just ask it questions like, okay, tell me the population, tell me the agriculture. We're very much agricultural state. Tell me what type of nonprofits are there. Tell me what's maybe lacking or some gaps in the small community. And so they start gathering this information and they actually check it to make sure it's accurate, of course, but it gives them an idea of something about their environment that they're not really aware of. It's kind of like me living in Boise. There's no way I would know about every single nonprofit that's happening, but I do know what interests me. I do know what I'm leaning towards. And before I did this with my students, I actually did it myself. So I practiced on myself to do this. And I was really interested in teaching AI to senior citizens. It's something I've been doing, and it did exactly what it said. It researched the need of teaching AI seniors. It told me the locations of senior centers, and it gave me the address and the phone number of who I need to reach out to. And I did. and I followed everything it told me. I didn't deviate at all. And I was actually able to make contact with a nonprofit senior center, and I was able to go out there and teach AI tools to these seniors. So that I felt very, very confident going in that this would work. And so far, the students actually like it. I don't consider it necessarily a shortcut, but because of the course being as it is and the resources that I have, I thought it was important, and I didn't want to skip over the needs assessment either. When they do the needs assessment, there is a little bit of research involved. That is more outside of AI. I have them do research so they can go to wherever AI is suggesting, like this is the library, this is the location, etc. This is the information. And of course, we have the link that goes to the library. When this course was being taught, those links only worked about 50% of the time. So they did have to do a lot of work outside of that. As we know, AI has gotten better in that respect, but it's not fabulous. They have a lot of broken links that they offer to connect with other people out there. So that was the part of the research gathering. And I noticed that a lot of students were actually kind of worried um, about who to contact if anything was even happening in their community, etc. So with the AI community partner, and like I said, after this slide, I have a little more details of what that looks like. So this was inspired by my niece because she actually works for a nonprofit, and she is young 20s. She's like a director of a small group, etc. And her generation does not like using the phone, which never ever crossed my mind. You know, where you dial in the phone number and you talk to somebody, it was it was like the worst thing for her to do, and I couldn't comprehend why, but it gave me some different perspective. Like, oh my gosh, here I am, like, go out into the world. You know who needs help out there in the community, and who you could, do some project with, etc. But the problem is the connection to the community partner. That was the dilemma I was discovering. They did not know how to do a cold call where you just call up and say, "Hey, I'm a student at Boise State. I'm supposed to do an assignment and etc." Um, that was really an uncomfortable thought. And again, totally something I never even thought about at all, that this would be uncomfortable. You would think they would be comfortable with an email. They were not, because they weren't used to just reaching out automatically to someone and going, "Hey, I need help. I need to do a project." That was really important that I incorporated that in steps in my course. And then they would also practice with the community partner, which I'll go into a little bit more. The brainstorming part is that when students, let's say they do have a project in mind. I had one student that wanted to create a a historical map of their community. And it was of houses that weren't classified necessarily as historical property, but they could be classified that way. It's kind of hard to explain. He wanted to create like a driving map so people in the community could respect and understand the beauty of the history of this city and drive around and look at it. So that was his intended goal, and it didn't really exist. There was locations of museums and things like that, but nothing like that. Um, so he didn't come up with that idea at the first time. What he did is that he went into the location where he lived and said, "Okay, this is what I want to do. Is this a good idea to complete within, they probably had 10 weeks left of school. Is this feasible? Can you suggest some different ideas?" And so that's how it was used for brainstorming, because even though students really do want to help the community, they really want to do a project, they're excited about it, they also don't know where to start. So that is the one barrier was the community partner, seeking out the community partner, because I didn't have the connection since they were the ones that lived in the community. Is also going, okay, what type of project am I going to do? And if it's feasible. A lot of my students, when they do brainstorm at first, they have really great ideas like, fixing the homeless population, but it's not doable in a project-based course that has a deadline date. So brainstorm and go, okay, this is what I really want to work with the homeless in my community. What can I do over this certain period of time? What would be manageable, etc. And so that's what I had him use it for. I also, even though I did not add this to this, but when they decide on the project, they've made connections, everything's working. I actually have them with AI create a schedule in place for each week. So I know that they're moving in the right direction and that they will complete the assignment in time or the project in time, because that's one of the biggest concerns as well, right? They have all these great ideas and then the project doesn't happen, or they wait the night before to do it because we were all college students once. And so that was always been a concern of mine as well. So they work on a schedule together and say, okay, these are my responsibilities. This is what I need to do. Help me create a timeline. And I have them turn in that assignment actually, so I can follow the timeline with them and make sure they're basically going in the right direction and doing something every single week. So here is one example of an assignment. And I just want to show you exactly the prompt that I would use for them. So first of all, I want them to create an AI persona of a community partner. They can choose whoever they want. And they do choose, so I want them to choose something that they're interested in. I don't want to choose it for them. So based on some of the brainstorming, based on some conversations, they have a general idea of who they want to work with or what environment. And so I asked them to put this into ChatGPT or Gemini and kind of hint about what they should say in there. And then they have a conversation. I give them 5 prompts that they use, and then I have them create 5 additional prompts. So there's no concern over it because it's a fictitious individual, it's a fictitious nonprofit. Um, it's actually more realistic than you would think. I've had students use actual, organizations that they know of but are not necessarily going to work with them. And so they are using this to just get used to understanding and what questions they need to ask about a nonprofit. I remember when I started volunteering when I was in high school, and I would just go to the homeless shelter and go, hey, I want to work, that you serve breakfast every Sunday, so let's do it. I didn't really care. I didn't really think about the whole aspect of what I was doing. I was just going there to serve. And once you just do that, you miss so much more about the whole purpose of doing something like this in the first place, right? So I have them do that at first, and they get to have an opportunity to kind of really see what that looks like without any issues. They can mess it up. It doesn't, I mean, they won't mess up, but there's no concerns on that. So that's a practice run. And then they have to share the prompts with me so I know what the conversation happened. Here's an example of a community analysis and brainstorming assignment, like I had mentioned. This is also in my modules or in one of the weekly assignments. So what they do is they research community needs in general. There's more questions and information behind this, but I'm doing the worst thing that possibly anyone can do, which is too much text on a slide. But it was the best way I could do this. And since the slides are being shared with you, you can see what I wrote into these assignments overall, generally overall. I do provide really explicit details because they kind of get lost with how to use AI sometimes. And once they figure it out, oh my gosh, they are amazing. By the end of the semester, is unbelievable how much they are using AI for ethically, I guess, is a better way to phrase that. So when they say identify a community, I'm talking about basically the location where they live. Most of them do live in the community in which they are also taking the course, but not all of them. Um, and then I tell them what they can use AI for. But a lot of them just lean towards ChatGPT and Gemini because it's free, because others are free to a certain extent. And then, of course, we know that there's a cost involved. And being rural students, that's the last thing I want them to do. So if they can get it through ChatGPT or Gemini, then that's great. So that's what it starts at. There's a little more details behind it, but that's the gist of it. And then I go into key areas of need. As we know with service learning, you don't want to go into a community or a community partner and go, this is what I want to do. Because what you want to do may not help anybody or anything. It has to be something that they need as well. So that is where I have them look at it to make sure that, their project matches the needs of that community partner. They're not just creating something to create something that's not necessary, that's not needed, that's being redundant. And so that is one area that we focus on, is also has something where once they figure out what that is, they can move on to the community partner and kind of have an idea of what could help them. I mean, it's a starting point. It could shift completely, of course, but that's a starting point. And then the potential projects, and that's what I tell them about looking at different projects. What are the needs of that community? And then they focus on their interests, of course. That's the most important aspect too, because you don't want a person that's not interested in a animal shelter and make them go and do a project there. You make them want to go to the historical society because that's where their interests lie, because these students all have different majors. So that was a key point to make sure that they enjoyed the course. I know way too much information. I didn't know how to cut this any further right here. So they now, after I explained that they create a fictitious community partner, now they know who they want to reach out to. They create an actual conversation with a representative of it. So let's say I'm going to do American, let's say I want to work or do a project at the Red Cross. I want to do a blood drive. And so they actually use, if they don't know who the person is, they use the organization. So I'll say, I want to work in Boise, Idaho. I want to work with this nonprofit, et cetera. And it will pull the information enough to get them started. I have them ask meaningful questions. And then after they complete this, they feel like they've already kind of tested it, and they use AI to help them create the first form of communication, which I don't go into a lot of details here, but they have to contact a real community partner and actually get out there. And I've noticed that students have told me that it helps them feel better about reaching out to the community partner instead of just a cold call, because now they've practiced on kind of fictitious but real at the same time. And so it's not a cold call or just an email from nowhere. It's actually them putting their thoughts together, telling the community partner what they want to do, et cetera, et cetera. Now, sometimes the community partner does not respond. So there's always a backup plan no matter what. And this has happened recently. I had a student want to create a children's book for a hospital in Las Vegas, and the hospital was not responding. So we found another way of another nonprofit where she could actually share her book with, and possibly go and read to the kids, etc. So we always have a backup plan no matter what, because that's just the way the real world works, is that sometimes you think you are really trying to do something that could be helpful, but then they may be too busy to respond. You just don't know. And that happens more common, unfortunately. So that is one of the other assignments, which is, I think, is the last example of an assignment. Anyway, the prompts are probably the most important aspect of these assignments, because if we don't get the student to write the prompt, then they can't get any further. So I try to write it as if they were going to write it directly into ChatGPT or Gemini. And so far, it seems to work really well. The conversations seem to get better when I shift the prompts more as I keep on teaching the course. I tweak what I think is working and what's not working, or if something's unclear, and I go back and I fix it. And so far, it seems like everything that they've been doing, it seems the brainstorming and actually working with an AI persona community partner, it seems to be something that's actually useful, because after that, they start doing the actual project itself. And that's when they don't really use AI anymore. They might help it organize their thoughts and put it into a report. Once they do the poster, they can't use AI. It's impossible to use it for what they're trying to do. But it does collect their thoughts. The reports do help. They're not allowed to use AI to write the whole report, obviously, but they have something that's conclusive, etc. And usually they report to the community partner and to me. defines exactly what the project was, evidence that they actually did the project, because most of the time I can't go out there and be at the event or activity that they're doing. So there has to be evidence of that. And then there has to be evidence of collection of information of whether the project worked or not. And I always tell them that it not working is as good as it working because it's an experience and they can change it, make it better, and then they have to reflect on what they could have done differently and what worked really, really well. What do they think they could have done, a little bit better? I mean, so there's a lot more to it since there's an overall essay at the end. Okay, so overall thoughts on my course. I do think it does enhance cognitive and reflective learning. I have tweaked the assignments a little bit, but I still think there's a lot of value there. As long as they know that the AI cannot write their reflection. And I mentioned this because not in this course, but some other courses, I have noticed that students are using AI to write their reflection. So I just have a conversation that that's not allowed. And I emphasize it in my syllabus as well. And sometimes I even send out a notice, re-emphasizing it. The challenge is the interpersonal engagement with me and with the other students, but I look at it as they're doing a lot of engagement with their community. So I know they're getting it from somewhere. It's not perfect in a virtual site, being in an online classroom. So I can only do so much in respect to that, other than meet with them via Zoom, which I do, and I talk to them on the phone. So that in itself is good. And they have to share with each other too. Supporting study discipline and online learning. I think that is also a little bit of a challenge, not so much in this class, but my other courses. I have noticed that some do take a shortcut, and it's really hard to fix how to do that other than us like, hey, you're using it a little too much. This is how you need to use it. And that seems to have been working so far. So the balance here is that yes, I use AI in my courses. I want to continue using AI in my courses. But there has to be an aspect where they're actually talking to other humans and doing other humans. I'm a human. That is really important, especially in this type of course. And hopefully, based on the evidence I've seen in their projects, they are doing that. They are having human connection, that they feel they are doing a good job. So overall, why does this matter? Mine supports diverse learners. That's been important because they come from all different backgrounds and different ages in other courses. It also, I think it strengthens the credibility of online engagement because they have other ways to not only engage with each other, but out in the community using AI and learning about their communities at a different level instead of just kind of going to the library and researching it. I think there's value there as well. The transferability of this is that it can be applied to different disciplines. I use it in different courses. I teach a team-based course where I use AI personas all the time. I'm also teaching a new sports entrepreneur course where they are using AI to do almost everything that I've been talking about, except it's sports themed and it's more of a sports project. So I know that I can transfer it with, changing up some things as well. I also know that using AI tools are free is important because they're already stressed out about everything. And I don't want to add another thing like, oh, you need to log online to this particular tool. You need to do this and that. I mean, if there's any learning curve to it, I try to avoid it if it's a new software or tool, just for their sakes. And of course, because it's rural and because they're online, the AI tool needs to be really easy, useful, fun at times. So I've been sticking with ChatGPT and Gemini, and students are like split between the two, but the answers are usually pretty much the same. And so things to think about is, I think I'm near my last slide, and then I'll look to see if there's any questions. But how do you assess learning in online community-based learning? I think how do you assess learning even using AI, which can be a challenge in itself. I think reflection is one way to do it. Where could AI support reflection and assessment? So instead of using it as something like they use to cheat or to copy, how can it really support them? And the AI personas I've been using, I'm trying to make that happen more and more. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on how the assignment is organized. And this is so new that I seem to be changing everything all the time just to keep up. And then some tools I use don't even exist anymore. So it's been challenging in that respect. And then what type of community partner, AI, AI community partner. At Boise State, there are some classes that already have a community partner in place. So my thoughts would be, maybe you can do the same thing about creating an AI community partner, but focusing on there, you're going to be only working with Red Cross, or you're only going to be working with St. Luke's, or something in that respect. Um, and the last thing is, AI doesn't create learning. It really doesn't. I'm using it as a tool for anything and to make the course more interesting and to use something that's not going to be going away anytime soon, as we know. It does help students express learning in different ways, especially when I see the prompts and how they have to respond to the prompt in AI. And it seems like they enjoy that process. And also helps educators assess what matters, which means, yeah, there are tools like they could do a needs assessment on their own completely, but then I have more space in my class for them to reflect and actually do the project, which is the heart of the course. So that's something as well to kind of think about. But like I said, my course is not perfect. I change it every single semester. With a couple of things when I look at their evaluations and how I see how the assignments are responded to. So as we know, it's always a changing process, isn't it? So that's it, I think. Does anyone have any questions for me? I have not been looking at the chat. I'm not talented enough to speak and look at the chat at the same time. It will never happen. I just can't seem to do it. Um, so I do see a question that's not for me, but it asks Susan where she teaches at. Michelle, the slides were shared, so I know. Oh, okay, never mind. Slides are available in the session description, so there we go. Um, I didn't know if anybody else had any questions. I hope I didn't speak too fast and you kind of understood the direction of my course. Yeah, Karen, what's up?
Yeah, thanks, Professor Sass. I really like your project. I've done something similar to it, and it's so meaningful for students to do something in their communities in this
Mhm.
way. I also liked how you had the project partner with AI as a thought partner. And what I was curious about is, do you also work in an element where they evaluate the information they're receiving to make sure it's accurate?
Yes, well, as you know, the chat has a tendency to create follow-up questions and also links. And those links are not always accurate because they do need to learn a little bit about their community partner and their community and make sure it's accurate. I have to say that after a year, I don't know about you, Karen, but I've noticed that the accuracy is increased pretty significantly compared to a year ago, where half of it was false or illusions or it was just not very good. But so the students, they really learn more about their community when they actually go talk to the community partner more than anything, because then they ask direct questions. So the research is great, but that's when it shifts, I notice. So they collect all this information about everything and then it's a whole different world. And I get that too because when I went out there to talk to senior citizens, I actually created a senior citizen AI and asked it questions like, what should I present on? I don't know what I'm doing here. It made a fictitious 82-year-old female. But then when I got there, the questions were so different than like completely. I was like, oh my gosh, I totally am speaking out the wrong thing. And I ended up doing like four other workshops based on the senior citizens that I was teaching AI to. So I do know the students have a shift and they change the direction of some of their projects or their ideas when they have that conversation with the community partner. So I hope that answered the question. So yeah, I don't emphasize a lot of research, but enough to get the conversation going and for them to do the project, since that's probably the chunk of the course. Um, oh, thanks, Timothy. Okay, so I think I don't see any more. Um, oh, okay. I see what you wrote, Karen. I don't see any other questions, and I feel like I did decent on time, I think, which gives you a few minutes, right, to get to the next. I don't know. I know I signed up for the next session, but now I can't remember when it occurs. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed what I talked about. I love this course a lot, and like I said, I'm twisting it around a little bit to make it sports orientated. Yes. Yeah, yeah, Karen, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
was wondering, do you mind sharing your survey questions, the self-assessment?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it's actually already created survey. I'll no, I'll send it to Susie, Karen, and I have your name, so I'll just have her, or I can probably send it directly. I could probably find you and send it directly to you. But yeah, I will go ahead and I will do that. It's already a core it's already the survey's already created. I just got permission to use it, so it exists. So it's already been tested and evaluated, which was purposeful. I
Mhm.
have to admit, though, the other ones that I've been doing using a pre and post to my other courses are created by me. So
Mhm.
they're not as authenticated or um, as tested. But yes, I will send them to you. I can even give you the link, and it's super easy to use and incorporate into your classroom for any service learning course. It's really general. It was the course evals that were really specific for what I wanted to see. Yeah.
Right.
All
Thank you.
right. Thanks, everybody. I'll probably run into you in one of the sessions really soon. But thank you. Have a great day and stay warm.
Thank you.
Thanks.